As the NBA season goes on, it is becoming more and more apparent that Ja Morant is emerging as a bona fide star guard and is willing the young Grizzlies to a top seed in the stacked Western Conference. Between the improved three ball to the high-flying dunks, Ja Morant has been one of the most hyped-up players in the NBA this year. In fact, Morant's play has been so good, it has given myself and other NBA fans flashbacks of one player and one player only. You guessed it, I'm talking about prime Derrick Rose. Today, we have to talk Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. In particular, taking a deep dive into why Ja Morant could do the unthinkable and do what Derrick Rose couldn't do by willing the young Grizzlies to the NBA Finals, what the team needs to do in order for this dream to become a reality, along with a statement that Ja Morant recently put out that should utterly terrify the entire NBA. But before we get into that, Ja Morant recently hit me up and said that he would start landing on 2 feet on his dunks if everyone watching hits that like button. So if you want to keep this man healthy, I would highly suggest leaving a like and sub below. But all jokes aside, let's talk Ja Morant and Derrick Rose. To say that Ja Morant is a freak of nature is simply an understatement. I mean, how often do you see small guards doing what Ja Morant is doing, not only in practice, but in games? I know the man is the king of what-if dunks at this point, but Ja has already pulled off some of the best posters for someone his size that I have seen in my entire life. I mean, just look at the block that this man had the other week. This literally should not be possible. But because of Ja's freak athleticism and great basketball skills, he has quickly drawn comparisons to a player that we thought was going to be the next face of the NBA, Derrick Rose. If you're a fairly new NBA fan, you might not know a ton about Derrick Rose in his prime, but to say that he was the biggest what-if player in NBA history might just be an understatement. Between his elite athleticism to his insane clutch gene, Derrick Rose quickly took the NBA by storm with the Chicago Bulls and won the Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the same season. This guy was special. Rose literally willed this Bulls team to a top seed in the East with offensive production unlike anything we'd seen in a very long time. But, as most of you know, tragedy struck Rose and the Bulls. In the first game of the 2012 playoffs, Derrick Rose went to jump on his left leg and managed to tear his ACL in the process. Rose at that point in time was one of the best players in the entire league, and people believed that the Bulls would have a chance at a championship window for years to come. But just like that, it was over. After this huge injury, Rose came back over a year later and tore his MCL shortly after that. And well, the man was just never the same. Rose lost the opportunity to dominate the league for years and will his young team to a championship, but now, many believe Ja Morant is the prodigy to Derrick Rose's legacy, and that he might be able to shock everyone this year in the playoffs, and potentially even win it all. Unlike the 2011 Bulls, the current Grizzlies roster is littered with young talent such as Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, and many more. But despite being young, this team looks like they have the chemistry to take it all the way. We saw these young guys step up to the challenge in the play-in tournament last year, which has led myself and many others to believe that they will do the same thing again, but this time be even better. The Grizzlies at this point literally have it all, an MVP caliber star in Ja Morant that can will this team to wins, a great supporting cast of young offensive talents, and defense along with veterans to go with it. Sure, they don't have the biggest names, but I believe this Grizzlies team is a dark horse contender, especially if injuries occur down the road for other teams. But what exactly does this Grizzlies team need to do in order to make a championship run and allow Ja to live out Derrick Rose's legacy? Well, this is where things get interesting. Being that the trade deadline is past us, at this point, the Grizzlies cannot make any moves to fix holes in their roster, but I believe there are 3 things that this team needs to do in order to make their championship dreams a reality. The first of which is to simply play their fast-paced game that they thrive in. I believe the key to the Grizzlies' success this year is that they've been pushing the pace all season no matter how tired they are as a team. At the moment, this team has the 6th highest pace in the entire league, which means they are always moving the ball and pushing it down the floor to get a bucket as quickly as possible. It has been made very clear over the past few years that teams who play fast typically have more success, especially in the postseason. Sure, some guys like James Harden can get away with playing iso ball and dribbling for 20 seconds per possession, but for the most part, teams in the modern day NBA thrive off of keeping the ball moving and pushing the pace on the fast break. At the moment, the Grizzlies have an average pace of 100 per game, which is right in line with teams like the Warriors, Suns, Nets, Bulls, and Bucks, all of which are teams that could easily run away with a championship because their offensive flow is so good. And if the Grizzlies keep up their elite pace, I believe it will only help them come playoff time, especially when they compete against some of the best teams in the entire NBA. Along with pace, I believe that defense will be crucial for this team regarding making a deep playoff run, in particular on the perimeter. Nowadays, almost all the focus is on offense, but as we have seen in the past few years with teams like the Bucks, Lakers, and Raptors winning it all, defense is the key to winning a chip. Sure, all of these teams had an immense amount of offensive talent, but overall I would say that almost all of these rosters played as a defense-first team in the playoffs. And that is exactly what the Grizzlies need to do as well. Guys like Dillon Brooks and De'Anthony Melton have been very solid wing defenders, and honestly, Ja Morant has been getting his fair share of steals as well. Because of this, the Grizzlies have racked up the 5th best defensive rating in the entire league. So if they're able to keep that up, there is no doubt in my mind that they could compete with any team they match up against in the playoffs. And at the very least, make it a close series. The last thing that needs to happen for the Grizzlies is a bit of a touchy topic, especially with all the Derrick Rose comparisons that we've been hearing about this season. But honestly, this Grizzlies team needs to stay 100% healthy throughout the regular season and the playoffs, especially star Ja Morant. When a player jumps as much as Ja, plain and simple, they are putting themselves at a higher risk of injury. Now, I'm not saying that Ja should be fearful of an injury, but if there are any precautions that he can take, landing on 2 feet, to prevent injury, then he should implement them as soon as possible. I know I shouldn't worry, but I also know that I'm not the only one who has a near heart attack when Ja lands on one leg, and honestly, it gives me flashbacks of Derrick Rose and his gruesome injuries. Back to the main point though, if this Grizzlies team wants to beat stacked veteran rosters like the Warriors or Suns, they will need to have everyone contributing significant numbers available to play at all times. This isn't really something in the control of the Grizzlies, and there will likely be injuries for this team, but honestly, I believe that this team needs everyone they have to make a championship run, or else it might just not be enough. Although a few things need to go this team's way, I am very confident in their ability to work as a team and win at the highest level. And at this point in time, it seems like Ja Morant hasn't even reached his full potential just yet, especially after what he said in a recent interview. If you didn't know, Ja Morant recently came out and said that he is gunning for the MVP of the All-Star game and the regular season. I don't know about you, but to me, it seems like Ja Morant is about to take it up an even higher notch after the All-Star break based on what he said. But what are the odds that he's able to run away with the MVP at the end of the season? Even though Ja Morant is having an amazing season, at the moment, the MVP race is basically as competitive as ever. With the amount of talent and elite players increasing each and every year, the chances of someone like Ja to take the MVP award home get smaller and smaller. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. Based on the NBA Math MVP Predictor, there are currently 8 players at the moment who are more likely to get the MVP based on their individual and team stats, along with the narratives. At the top of the list, we have Nikola Jokic, and as we work our way down, we have Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, DeMar DeRozan, LeBron James, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, and finally, Ja Morant. Honestly, looking at this list, I think that Ja Morant has a very good chance of jumping up the standings if he takes his stats up a notch as he indicated. I mean, Trae Young and LeBron's teams have been heavily underperforming this year, the Mavericks just traded away Porzingis so they could tank in the standings as well, and Steph Curry just hasn't been the same since his mid-season cool-off. I will admit, it will be very difficult for Ja to pass players like Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, and DeRozan because they have been so good lately. But let's just get right into the stat line that Ja would likely need to beat all these guys and take home the MVP to Memphis. At the moment, Ja actually has an insane stat line of 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. This in itself actually is next level production for Ja, but because of the stat stuffers like Jokic that literally have the Nuggets on their back right now, these numbers will have to improve. Taking a look at Nikola Jokic's stats so far this season, he is averaging 26 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. I know that the scoring is close to Ja, but the fact that a big man is dropping more dimes and getting a double-digit rebounds per game makes him a lot more likely to win this award. So what would Ja's stat line have to be to increase his chances of winning? Honestly, at this point, I think it is very unrealistic for Ja to increase his rebounds per game. So for that reason, I believe he would have to average at least 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 8.5 assists per game to be considered for the MVP. Yeah, you heard me right. There is so much competition for this award, I think that Ja Morant would have to go on an absolute scoring rampage for the rest of the season, and average 30 points per game in order to win the award. On top of that, it will be crucial for the Grizzlies to finish as a top 3 seed in the West in order for Ja to win this award. After all, with teams like the 76ers and Bulls leading the East, Ja and the Grizzlies will have to keep up with the standard if he even wants to be considered for the award at the end of the year. But what's interesting is that Ja knows this is what he will have to do in order to win the award. So being that he said he is gunning for the MVP, well, all I have to say is that NBA teams should be utterly terrified because this man might have one of the best post-All-Star break hot streaks that we've seen in the past decade. It will be tough to beat guys like Jokic or even DeRozan for this award because of the way they're playing, but if anyone can do it, it's the kid from Murray State that everyone doubted from the beginning. Let me know down below what your expectations for the Memphis Grizzlies are come playoff time, and other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Woods out.